we are going to talk about Hakeem Jeffries. Bernie blowback, ladies and gentlemen. Bernie blowback. How Sanders' primary endorsements have sparked a Democratic midterm war. Now, what's interesting about this article is that it's not written by Edward Isaac Dover. It's instead written by Sarah Ferris, Manu Raju, and Allison Main. Normally, this type of article, if it's super negative, would be written by Edward Isaac Dover. So the fact that Manu's on it gives me a little bit of confidence. Okay? Edward Isaac Dover is the designated pro-Israel, anti-Bernie, like anti-Bernie-crat guy at CNN. He's the CNN payroll hatchet man. One of the best parts about this article is Hakeem Jeffries confronted Senator Bernie Sanders against meddling in House primaries, particularly one involving a black Democrat. He seemed to not care, said Greg Meeks of New York, a Jeffries ally who was also on the call, said of Sanders recalling the previously unreported phone call. Fucking beast mode. My goat. Bernard has had it. Bernard has had it, baby. Michigan is the front lines of Bernie versus leadership war with Al Sayed surging. Gary Peters was so afraid he could lose the Dems. The seat that Peters came out for Haley in a must-win House seat. Sanders is pushing Will Lawrence, activist whose remarks about black leaders have infuriated the party. They're trying to do a package deal, right? They're trying to do Bernie bros are anti-black. Once again, they're trying to rehash the old meta. And I will admit, it has been very effective in the past, okay? Especially in constituencies where the old entrenched vanguard still remains, okay? It's still a fairly reliable mechanism to thwart the left flank. I want to bring up something interesting that I saw on the timeline of an old conversation that Uncle Sam Cedar had. Okay, an old conversation from 2021 about black socialism. Okay, this is from August 4th, 2021. Let's take a look.
This is something about black politics that I think is important for particularly progressives, white or otherwise, who try to understand and ask questions like, why did black people vote for Joe Biden? I don't understand. The policies that Bernie has are so much better. Black politics is a politics of containment and capture. What does that mean? How does black politics works? When the South Carolina primaries are about to happen, Jim Clyburn has the phone number of every black church pastor in his Rolodex. Every black membership organization, fraternity, sorority, graduate chapter, and alumni chapter, which in those chapters are the teachers, the principals, and all of the administrative officials of your black high schools, okay? All of the historically black colleges and universities, which are going to be in South Carolina, a large number of students, which is going to literally have an ideological role in shaping the politics of thousands of students. What I'm trying to say is that the way in which Clyburn does this is not because black people will, if you explain the policies to them, will not understand. This stuff, federal job.
Yeah, this is Revolution podcast for those of you who don't know. If you're actually interested in hearing this perspective and further beyond it, they're a great podcast. This is Revolution is the name of the podcast.
Guarantee and universal health care is better for us. It's that the ideological infrastructure is controlled by the black political class, and they maintain that control by exacting patronage, which I call fatback and biscuits, from the Democratic Party and its corporate acolytes, and handing it out piecemeal to people who are within their constituency through public service types of policies. And that aspect of how black politics works is what, in order for anyone who's interested in having any kind of left, and I've said this and I'll say it again, you will not have a left in America with effective politics without black people, because there's never been a left in America with effective politics without black people. And if you do not do that, black politics will be used to destroy the left, like it was done in 2016 and 2020. You have to understand and find a way to puncture the ideological.
And there are certain things. Look, I've been talking to a lot of people about this kind of stuff for quite a while now, because it's something that I acknowledged, is something that I understood fairly early on. Black people demographically are the most progressive voting bloc in this country. Okay? Straight up. Issue after issue after issue, Black people are consistently, bar none, the most progressive, the most reliable progressive voting bloc in the country. Okay? This is 100% the case. Okay? But it is a policy of containment. It is a politics of containment as well. And therefore, there is a lot of understandable mistrust towards outsiders, specifically progressive outsiders. And I think Jim Clyburn weaponizes that all the time. Okay? And I think we on the left, when we speak on certain issues, like when we say stuff, especially because, look, I'm white. You know, I'm Muslim, but I'm white, right? When we speak on certain issues, when we speak out against Black people, even if they're centrist liberals, for example, right? That comes across very differently to a lot of older voters, especially, right? That comes across as unnecessarily antagonistic. That's number one. Number two, there's still no penetration into the voter turnout machine, the infrastructure. And part of that is because there aren't a lot of, and this is changing now, but there aren't a lot of visible Black socialists. Okay? And part of that is also because Black progressives are oftentimes sidelined, not by the progressive movement, mind you, just if you're Black, it's already harder for you to generate more goodwill within the party. Summer Lee is the example I'm thinking of. Ayanna Pressley is another example I'm thinking of. Summer Lee's a great example because, like, she is one of the congressional representatives that's closest to me ideologically, and yet many people don't know of her, right? Ayanna Pressley, I agree with on a lot of stuff. She's a very consistently progressive politician, and again, many people don't know of her. Cori Bush, obviously this community is aware, but of Cori Bush. We've campaigned with Cori as well. But like, this is in some instances by design, right? Ilhan Omar as well. So there is definitely a problem with Black visibility in general, and it's doubly difficult. It's especially difficult if you're also outside of the establishment, outside of the center of power within the Congressional Black Caucus, for example. If you're not a part of this vehicle, if you want to be an agent of change, you don't even have that leg up. Now, here's the thing. Summer Lee isn't DSA. DSA discarded her and she's a socialist still. Yeah, Summer Lee isn't DSA because of the DSA, specific DSA chapter's fault. Okay? So maybe hush. But the other part of it, I do think Black socialists get sidelined by white progressives. I mean, I don't know if I fully, like, there's definitely an element of that. This community is one where that doesn't happen, and yet still, like, there's a broader problem, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, think about it this way. How many people have said that DSA is anti-Black, DSA is taking away Black power, brown power from the New York political machine? The DSA slate was all Black and brown folk except for one guy. There is this weird narrative that mainstream outlets also play a formative role in advancing that robs people of their identity, that robs people of their Blackness if they're Democratic Socialists, that robs people of their Latina background if they're Democratic Socialists. And it's the same principle for Zionism, right? If you're critical of Israel, you're no longer Jewish. We saw this with Brad Lander. And Brad Lander is as pro-Israel as you can be while still being critical of Israel, right? And they made it seem like Brad Lander was actually anti-Semitically unseating Dan Goldman. All the Jews that voted for Brad Lander over Dan Goldman were no longer Jewish in the eyes of the media. This happens all the time. And It's very fucking frustrating. The establishment weaponizing racial politics to defend corporate interests over the rights of all people, regardless of race, is so disgusting. 4 out of 6 people here are not white, and one of them, one of the white people is Jewish, a group that they also claim the left hate. Is so bad faith, a disgusting way that they try to turn people against each other with millions in dark money from corporations and special interest groups. Even when phenomenal left-wing candidates like Janice, Dari Liza, Milak Kuros can win black and non-white voters, they spread misinformation and slander these progressive women of color. Is truly disgusting the lengths that they'll go to create a false narrative that somehow the left is more anti-black and white supremacist than the same centrist MLK warned us about. Anyway, listen. The other thing I was going to say is there is a truth to the fact that we on the left have not leaned into our black comrades as much. This is something that has to change. Okay? That's number one. Because at the end of the day, I will never be able to have the impact in a black neighborhood that the Jam Boys will in their own neighborhood in Chicago. You know what I mean? I will never understand this experience. You know, I can only empathize, but I can never understand it fully. I will never be able to live this experience. So that's one. Same with Sean the Black, right? So we have a lot of work. We have a lot of work to build a network and boost. We have a lot of work to do as far as like developing a network and boosting black voices so that they can turn around and organize in their communities so we can bring them into this larger working class movement. And part of that also means like going to HBCUs, for example. Like we don't have a presence in these spaces at all. We don't have a presence in black churches. We don't have a presence in HBCUs. You know who does though? Establishment Democrats. And not just black establishment Democrats, just establishment Democrats in general. And another part of that problem that draws, at least according to, Sean's analysis on this issue, another problem here is also the dismissive ways in which those on the left talk about DEI, affirmative action, initiatives such as that. I have always talked about it being a Band-Aid solution and yet still one that is necessary and talked about the broader the broader complications when you attack these sorts of things and like successfully destroy them, what that means for black people getting a leg up. But there are definitely some people who will just say, no, fuck that. Like we shouldn't focus on that. In order to organize in the white working class, we need to not focus on things like that. Now that comes across as too dismissive. And it's a conversation that black people have heard many times over. Right? When people hear that stuff, when people hear things like that, when black people hear things like that, they go, oh, I know what this is. You don't give a fuck about me. Okay? That's it. That's it. So we'll never get the unks and the aunties on our side if we do that. What is this? I will be expecting to recreate this YouTube short at the next DSA event. Shut the fuck up, Oni. I mean, this shit's weird as fuck too. This is not. My policy is just, treat people like people. Don't go above and beyond. Don't go overboard. That's weird. That's no way to organize. It's far better to have black allies in these communities that bring us into these communities to help them organize than to go to those communities and do this kind of symbolic otherizing of black people, right? Because that shit doesn't, that shit's lame and strange. And in some ways, it's also kind of racist because it's so performative. And it's also like, it still goes back to me. What am I doing as a white person? Look at me. It's white performance. Okay? Like, look at me. I'm a white guy and I'm going above and beyond with my acknowledgement. Just fucking normal. Like, what is this performance? That's the way I read it, at least. That's why I hated the Nancy Pelosi Kente cloth shtick, It's just silly. It's so transparent. It's so, maybe it works. I don't know. Maybe older voters like it. But in any case, yeah, this is the take I hear a lot. Yeah, we heard it for 200 years. Let us prioritize white people, please. Then you'll get what you want. Then we get cut out and excluded and told to be happy when we got the crumbs. Yeah. But the problem is, it's not like the establishment is giving black people anything either. But the difference is the establishment is at least like, the establishment offers, a comforting face, lip service, and it's there. It's funding. There's a funding vehicle from the party apparatus that trickles down to these black organizations and institutions, right? As they're talking about here, right? Dems will give money. Like Jim Clyburn is always going to have money from the Democratic Party that he can distribute to South Carolina groups, right? To different black organizations and institutions in South Carolina. So there is like a payment patronage system that already exists. And that creates obviously a lot of trust.
Superstructure that allows people like Clyburn to basically take large segments of black voters and dump them into the neoliberal corporate section of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, the reason DeGette got pissed off at Clyburn, he failed to get the black vote for her. That's why she wanted him replaced as a whip. Notice how these articles always emphasize black and Latino leaders, not ordinary non-white voters. The divide isn't between non-white voters and the DSA'S, between non-white voters and their out-of-touch leaders who are enraged by the success DSA's having with non-white voters. And it's also having with non-white leaders. Because look, there is a generational divide here, okay? That's the real secret. Everyone under the age of 35, every non-white person in this country under the age of 35 knows this fundamental truth. You are not getting a crumb of power or a crumb of wealth from your older relatives. Okay? That's part of the reason why. I mean, look at DSA. Look at DSA. Although the media and black and Latino leaders and organizers are claiming that like they're being written off, they're getting unseated. By who? By who? By who? By white people? Did we replace Nydia Velázquez was a white person with a white man? No. Claire is Latina and indigenous. Claire Valdez. Did we replace Adriana Espaillat with a white man? No. Daria Liza is Afro-Latina. She's Dominican. So that's why this shit is so cynical and so frustrating. The real factional battle that takes place within the entrenched power that is the Congressional Black Caucus and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, like the real machine politics that is frustrated and worried and fearful, is fearful that they're losing their seniority-backed positions that they waited for decades. They shut the fuck up, they played ball, and they sat around for decades hoping to finally arrive at some power within the party system. And now you got a 32-year-old activist coming in and unseating you? Are you kidding me? Of course they're pissed. But that's also important to recognize. There is this generational divide taking place. That's what's going on. That's really what the anger and the resentment is all about. You're skipping the line. You're skipping the line. You're not playing the seniority game. Wait around. You need to first become a staffer. Then you need to work on campaigns. Then you need to run for local office. And then you need to be groomed by the person who has been in that seat of power for 40 years to retire and hope to God that they hand select you as their replacement. That is how it works in the Democratic Party. That's how Maylot won. Instead of waiting maybe 2 more seasons for Diana DeGette to retire and hand select her replacement, Maylot skipped the line. Where was the racial narrative then? Maylot is a black woman, a young black woman. Was there any racialized narratives from mainstream outlets? Diana DeGette is being quite the racist. After all, look, she attacked Jim Clyburn back in the day. Is there a real through line here with her, anti-black behavior? When will we address Diana DeGette's anti-blackness? No one ever made that article. Now, that would be a cynical and article to write regardless. But do you really put it past if the roles were reversed? If there was an incumbent black Democrat possibly on the verge of being unseated by a young white woman, you don't think that that would be the main narrative you hear from every mainstream outlet? I mean, Haley Stevens is a white woman, and the media is treating it like she's a part of the Congressional Black Caucus. Haley Stevens is a white woman, and they're making it seem like Abdul is the white guy in this race trying to go after the black woman. Literally, Haley Stevens is a white woman who's Christian, and people act like she's Jewish. The weaponization of IDPOL is out of control. It's crazy. They're like, how dare you attack Haley Stevens? That's anti-Semitic. What the fuck do you mean that's anti-Semitic? Between Abdul and Haley, there's only one person that has actually unseated a Jewish person from a position of power by getting tens of millions of dollars from AIPAC, and that's Haley Stevens against Andy Levin. That current congressional seat she occupies, AIPAC paid for her to do so because they didn't want an Israel-critical Jew to be in that position of power. Okay? It's crazy. The key or signature move here is the smear with countless allegations of sexism for manufactured microaggressions, followed by a do-nothing, throw up your arms as Hillary did in 2016. Well, breaking up the banks won't end sexism and racism. Yeah, way to be dismissive of a candidate, 3-term, in parentheses, woman, congresswoman. These people are demons, man. They're demonic. All they care about is power. That's all they care about. And they will stop at nothing to make sure that they eliminate all threats to their seat of power. Now, of course, there's a reason why they don't attack the Republicans in the same way. Because Republicans are not unseating them in their cushy, safe districts. We are doing that, right? And Republicans, no matter how evil they get, that's a good funding vehicle for the Democrats. Without doing a single damn thing, you could just fundraise against how devastating the Republicans are. So it actually fits into this power structure. It's perfectly fine if Republicans are dog shit fascists. That allows them to not do anything and still collect campaign funds. That's why they're way, way tougher on their left flank than they are against the Republicans. Yeah, on Andy Levin and AIPAC. Look, AIPAC spending millions to back Haley Stevens in 2022 against Andy Levin was indeed a radicalizing moment for a lot of people in Michigan. In an interview with Dave Weigel at the time, AIPAC's president said they targeted Levin precisely because, as a synagogue president, Levin had strong standing to criticize Israel's actions and defend Tlaib and Omar against attacks. So Andy Levin had to be crushed. AIPAC never saw the hypocrisy in their targeting of someone specifically because they were Jewish, or if they did, it didn't stop them. Levin endorsed Abdul. Day one, baby. Andy Levin endorsed Abdul, I think, day one.